Hey everyone, what's up? This is Uri Peleg for Gorilla Poker with another hand history review, again requested by one of our YouTube viewers. Thank you for the cool hands that you posted. And yeah, let's dive right into it. So this hand is played between Makeboifin and Tobias. Both, way up there in terms of skill level, some of the best players in the world for sure. This is being played at 200, 400. Linus is also at the table, so not a shy table, not one you'd want to just hop into. Makeboifin opens the cutoff for 2.5x. Tobias 3-bets to 3,400 and Makeboifin calls, and we have a flop of ace of spades, 10 of diamonds, 3 of diamonds. Always important to think who's the flop good for, because that's going to be a large driving force in the strategies. And, here this board is definitely a fairly strong one for Tobias's range. A lot of people would continue here with a high frequency c-bet for a small size. And that is indeed what we see with Makeboifin checking, Tobias c-bet, betting roughly 25% pot. And whenever you see these small bets on boards that are good for the 3-better, you can go ahead and assume that he's betting somewhere between his entire range to most of his range. So kind of everything is in there, right? Pocket eights, pocket kings, ace king, ace 5. And the idea here, I think I've probably mentioned this a million times, but that when you're making a strategy, the top part of your range is generally interested in big bets, getting all in, etc. So if you have ace king, you kind of want to bomb. And then you have the kind of middle part of your range, which is often interested in getting in, a small bet as early as possible, and not necessarily going for stacks. So imagine that you're Tobias here and you have something like pocket jacks or pocket queens. You would be really happy to throw in a small bet and then, depending on the run out, check it down or throw in another small bet. And very often you need to decide, which of these strategies you're going to go with. So do you start out betting big and throw the queens and jacks in a check back line? Or sometimes when the board is advantageous enough, I think, for you, you just go ahead and fire everything small and then go with the big bets later on. Very often that's what a lot of modern players are doing these days. So that's kind of, in short, what's going on here. Sure most viewers know and understand these concepts. So, small c-bet, Makeboifin calls, turn ace of hearts, Makeboifin decides to donk bet for 10% and Tobias calls. Generally, in order for a donk bet to be part of a strategy, you need the turn to shift something about the situation. So the way poker works is that the out-of-position player check raises a lot of his strong hands on a flop, and then if the turn is a brick, he does not get to donk bet, while if the turn is an equity shifting card, so a card that kind of shifts the nuts a little bit or devalues some of the in-position player's top range, then the out-of-position player gets to develop a donk betting range. Now, ace of hearts is not a card that does either one of those. Tobias's top hands like ace king or ace queen are still top hands. They did not get devalued. So this is not a card on which Makeboifin should ever be donk betting. If I had to guess what is going on through his head, like why did he do this, I would say it's probably a mistake, plain and simple, right? Even the top guys make mistakes. Because very often the top card pairing does lead to a donk betting strategy for the out-of-position player. Imagine a board like queen 7-5 and turn is a queen. Well, now in position got his aces and kings devalued. Out of position can suddenly go for stacks with all of his trips, and maybe you have an excuse to start donk betting. But that's just not the case, specifically on an ace pairing. So if I had to guess, Makeboifin was kind of generalizing wrongly. Other cards you could consider donk betting on would be diamonds. Whenever a flush comes in, there's this equity shift. Of course, as like a coach to viewer, I would not recommend you guys get into any of this. This is very niche stuff, very high level stuff. It's not important to your win rate. I would personally not bother with it and would only use it kind of exploitatively if I thought that my opponent is going to react in a bad way in some fashion. Now, in terms of how do you react to the 10% donk bet, you kind of treat it as a check. Just assume the guy is betting most of his range, even though he's not supposed to, but probably a little bit of everything. So you treat it similar to as though he checked. You have to fold some of your trashiest stuff, but you get to keep bluffing, keep value betting, kind of ignore it. So here Tobias calls, and we'll think of this in terms of the analysis sort of as though it went check-check. River 4 of spades, Makeboifin checks, Tobias fires with, I think, like a 75% pot size bet, which I think means trips plus. Maybe kings, queens can go for this sometimes. I wouldn't be sure, but wouldn't be shocked, I guess. Feels more like trips plus. Makeboifin check raises all in. Here again, if we're kind of thinking about ranges, value range for check raising all in would be boats and good kicker trips. So ace 3 suited, ace 4 suited, pocket 3s, pocket 4s, pocket 10s, ace 10, all the boats. Then potentially you have ace king, ace queen, ace jack some of the time, depending on how thin you want to go. All of those feel like they're probably good enough to go for stacks if you get here with them. And then you have to think of bluffs. What would Makeboifin be bluffing with? And there are two very natural choices if you look at the board. So I recommend you guys pause the video and try to think your Makeboifin. You got to the river. You have to check your hand, and then it has to make a good check raise all-in candidate as a bluff. Try to think what the hands would be. Okay, so in my eyes, one answer would be 4-5 suited. 4-5 suited has the amount of showdown value necessary where you can check it on the river, and then check raise all in because you're blocking some of Tobias's top range with a 4, right? You block ace 4, you block pocket 4s. Both hands he could potentially sometimes have in, which would always call you. So hand looks nice. Second hand would be a 10. And here I'd go more for 10-9 suited, 10-8 suited, than Jack 10, Queen 10. Reason being, I kind of want to unblock the broadways in Tobias's range. I feel like Tobias, maybe he has kings and queens and jacks sometimes, so I don't want to have those. But also maybe he's bluffing a hand like king, queen, king, jack, queen, jack. So I kind of like going for the lower kicker 10s intuitively. I'm not sure that's correct. Kind of the art of this kind of spot as Makeboifin would be, if you're trying to shoot for GTO, how many 10s can you bluff? How many 4-5s can you bluff? Certainly not all of them. Certainly not none of them. It's very difficult to kind of calibrate this in-game to be perfect. And a lot of the guessing games that could happen at high stakes where people exploit each other, let's say Makeboifin does this and you're Tobias. I would be thinking, is he gonna have bluffs? First of all, is he gonna recognize the 4-5, the 10-9? And then once he recognizes them, I would try to count value combos and be like, okay, he gets to bluff this many bluff combos. Obviously not too many. And what do I think? Is he going to overshoot or undershoot the spot and, make my bluff catches based on that? Now, Tobias on the river obviously has to call his good kicker aces and his boats, and he has to mix with the rest of his trips, right? Because those would be the hands that are 0 EV catchers. They don't beat the value range, but they beat all the bluffs. And then, you call some, you fold some. That's, how these hand types work. Unless you have a read. So you would be digging, if you were me, I would dig really hard for a read. If I can't find a read, I'd try to shoot for a reasonable frequency and not worry about it too much. As played, Tobias decides to make the call. He shows down ace 5 of diamonds, and Makeboifin has ace 10 for the nuts. And if we kind of go through the hand, so Makeboifin should probably check raise flop. Like I said, top of your range, out of position, you should be doing a lot of check raising, especially when the board is dynamic and Tobias is betting close to his entire range. Turn donk bet by Makeboifin in my eyes is just a technical mistake, but who knows, maybe there's another reasoning for it. And the river seems fine. Go back to Tobias. Tobias, c-bet is fine. Turn, I kind of like just calling the fact that you have ace 5 of diamonds specifically. You could cooler other flush draws on a river diamond, but if you raise the turn, they would be forced to fold, and then certainly bet the river, and facing an all-in, like I said, ace-x would be a zero-ish EV hand, except for one thing, and that's that we expect our opponent to be bluffing with 4-5 suited sometimes. So barring a read, ace-5 specifically is actually a bad ace to call with. You would call more ace-9, ace-8, ace-7, ace-6, and actually fold ace-5 because of the interaction of blocking 4-5. You know, it's a really minor thing, but if you have no read, then this is what you base your decisions off of, right? Like ace-5 is just going to do worse than ace-6. You don't need to call all your ace-x. So kind of done there. You don't need to think about it a lot more beyond that. But these things are very, very minor compared to the possibility of having reads, so I wouldn't worry about them too much. Yeah, I think kind of funky hand. Happy to review it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.